So thank you guys for having me here. I wanted to start with the problems that we all have experienced and witnessed here in the Philippines on a day-to-day basis. And I want to talk about it in a way that is not just saying that these are our problems and start complaining about it, but to tell you that we could build solutions and that everyone can be part of building solutions to our day-to-day problems. So when you ask people, what are the problems that we experience here? I think everyone would agree that poverty, lack of access to quality education, poor infrastructure are the things that are hurting our lives on a day-to-day basis. And not just us, but everyone who lives in the Philippines and everyone who wants to grow here. But at the same time, when you start to look at other aspects, we see that 11% of Philippines' GDP comes from the OFWs. That is a crazy number to think about it. That a large portion of the economic production comes from people who are outside and they're sending money back home. And it's ironic because GDP stands for gross domestic product. But actually, a big chunk of it comes from outside back in. And there are very few countries that have a structure like this, that have more than 10 million people who are OFWs contribute to the economy from the outside. And I think that is something very, very special about what we experience here in the Philippines. Then we look at the BPO industry. We see that there are 1.3 million employees in the job of outsourcing services for companies that are outside. Do you see the dynamic there? There are people who are working outside, sending money back home, and there are people who are working inside, sending their productivity out, working for other companies and creating a better life for themselves and their families while doing so. I think these are very, very special numbers, and these are things that make Philippines very, very unique. Then we also see that we are at the peak of the youth population. More than 50% of the Filipinos, are under 35. And a lot of countries don't have that either. There are more than 100 million people here, and the workforce is ready, is getting ready to work, is getting ready to offer their productivity to the local economy. And I think this is a very important factor to kind of take a look at and have in mind. Yeah, 11% of the GDP comes from OFWs, 1.3 million people in the BPO industry. We look at the population of the youth building the majority of the economy. We look at 115% mobile phone penetration. And again, this is a very, very special number because a lot of developing economies don't have a number like that. Don't have a fact that there are more mobile phones than people. And developed countries have it, but Philippines is neither. Is somewhere in between. Big chunk of economy from OFWs, large BPO industry, young population, and more mobile phones than people. Then we look at the people. They are young, they are digital, and they are eager to build a better life for themselves and for everyone around them. So when you start to look at the problems that we experience on a day-to-day basis, and then on the other hand, you see these interesting numbers, it makes me love the Philippines. It makes me believe that there is so much potential and opportunity here that is not yet tapped. And why do I say potential that is not yet tapped? It's because it's not gonna become real by itself. So we can't just say, oh, Philippines is gonna become great by itself. It means that business people, entrepreneurs, the workforce, if we all come together to start to try to realize this potential, we can actually solve a lot of our problems here. And one of the reasons that I decided to stay in the Philippines, I came here more than 8 years ago, was that as I started to kind of experience the day-to-day life, I realized there are just so many problems. And as a problem solver, it felt like heaven to me. I was like, I will never be done solving problems here because there's just so much to do. There's no shortage of problems to solve. And they are so interesting that keep me busy and keep me challenged and engaged. So that's why I really like living in the Philippines. And we think that the human capital market is extremely underserved. It's extremely underserved because one of the biggest exports of the Philippines is people. One of the largest employers of people here are serving other countries, other markets, having back office operations here. It means that there are companies around the world that are tapping into the human capital potential of the Philippines. And why wouldn't we be able to do that for our domestic economy? Why does it have to be BPO countries running their world operations from the Philippines? Why can't we have domestic companies really tapping into this potential and leveraging this opportunity that is ahead of us to not just build a better country, but to also run a good business? To run a business that makes money and solves problems and helps every single person that deals with it, whether they are employees, whether they are customers, whether they are the families of the employees. We can create a win-win-win opportunity out of what we have here. But the human capital markets are very underserved. And as an entrepreneur, I see this as a calling. I see this as a reason to build things that leverage the resources that we have and increase the productivity that we can tap into. What I see is opportunity. Every problem that I see on a day-to-day basis can translate into a very large opportunity if thought well through and if executed well. So when we start to look at this opportunity ahead of us, we see that the time to change things is now. Because every great country had one generation who worked really, really hard to change lives of everyone that comes after them. We have seen that in Japan, we have seen that in China, we have seen that in the United States. It was one generation that worked really, really hard to fix those problems. And when I look at the majority of the population being young, meaning that they have 20, 30 years of productive life ahead of them, I believe that we can change things, and it is the best time to do it now. So we started to think about a few things. We said, well, if there are more mobile phones than people, if their export of the country is labor, why can't we put that together? Why can't we organize a mobile workforce that can do things and do things quickly on the go? Philippines leapfrogged from not having computers to having desktops to mobiles. Philippines jumped directly to having mobile phones. In a lot of other developed countries, they first had no internet, then internet came, it went to the schools, it went to the universities, it went to the large organizations, everyone started getting their personal computer, then computers got smaller, and then they started getting their mobile phones. Philippines didn't have that. It jumped directly to having 4G internet. That is extremely slow, but they got to have it in their pockets. A very large portion of our population here doesn't have a desktop computer at home. But everyone has a phone, and there are more phones than people. So why should we go and do things like the US does or the other countries do, because we are not necessarily in the similar conditions. So we started to rethink that and said, what if we organize a mobile workforce? What if we provide on-demand access to labor, enabling people to get jobs on the go, and enabling companies and consumers to tap into this potential in the fastest way possible and the most reliable way possible. And it started with that. We thought, well, if companies here could hire people very quickly, if they could get the right people very quickly, we could actually do a lot. Because when I talk to business owners, when I look at my own problems, they are mostly people problems. And automation is there. All these technological changes are coming there. But if we have people problems, why do we not solve our people problems using technology? So we said, let's build a company called MyKorea and provide on-demand access to labor for enterprises, for consumers. Let anyone be able to hire whoever they need in the fastest way possible and pay the most economic price to get what they need done. So we started this company less than a year ago, and we have been going through a lot, and it has been a very rewarding journey so far, and we haven't even launched our official product yet. We did our alpha launch, we did our beta launch, and we did all of our market research while actually running the company to really understand the problem that we want to solve before we go and build a crazy technology stack and platform that no one might be able to use. So what we said was that if we could have the workforce earn money by doing things for consumers and companies, learn things while doing so, be part of a community that teaches them stuff, that pays them, then we could actually do a lot. Expecting a complete overhaul of our education system is going to take a long time. And it's going to yield results over the next decades. But this is something we can do right now so that people can start with entry-level jobs, learn things, get a hold of it, and get upskilled. Imagine if you were learning things while getting paid for it. And I think this is how we will solve the education problem in the Philippines, because many people can't afford quality education. So we say, hey, why don't you go and work, earn minimum wage, learn things, do something more complicated, earn more, and so on and so forth. We told the companies, you can actually get even 500 people tomorrow from our platform. Getting people fast and getting the right people is something that no one in this market is offering right now. So when companies come and use our enterprise solutions, they tell us, I need 50 people tomorrow, and I want them to be able to do this and this and this. So we leverage our technology to connect them to the right people in the fastest way possible. And some of you here are our clients, and I hope that we have done a good job in serving you guys. The truth is that innovation is not just technology. And this is something that a lot of people get wrong. A lot of people think that if we want to be an innovative country, if we want to be an innovative economy, we have to be Silicon Valley. We have to build tech companies. We have to get developers to develop apps. People think apps are technology. But we don't think that. We think that technology is a way to approach our old problems with new ways, and a lot of the times it doesn't need technology itself. To think about a model that wants to address our most pressing problems and wants to solve those by building an ecosystem that every stakeholder who is part of it wins, doesn't need technology, but it is innovation. It is to think about how do we solve these problems that have been there for such a long time using new ways. And I want to leave you guys with this message, that people talk about digital transformation, they talk about all these buzzwords that are just popping left and right. We keep getting invited into large companies that they're like, oh, how do we build AI in our company? How do we digitally transform our company? And when I ask them, why would you want to do that? They don't know why. They just want to make sure that they don't miss the wagon, that they don't get disrupted, but that's exactly why you get disrupted. It's because you think it's the AI, it's the new apps, it's mobile that is disrupting your business. But the truth is, it's the thinking behind it. It is that we need to think about how do we solve our most pressing problems, and how do we come up with solutions that address that. Technology, apps, digital, cloud, all these things are tools, not solutions. They are tools to solve our problems, but they are not the solution themselves. The solution is the thinking. And I believe that we can solve them. So we said, can we create 1 million job opportunities through our platform? And a lot of companies would have taken this as their sole purpose and tried to do everything alone. We said 1 million jobs is a lot. It took the BPO industry to build that over decades. It's almost 15, 20 years since the BPO revolution sort of started. So we said, we want to work with every single company that wants to be part of this solution, that wants to address the problems that we are trying to address, and by just using our services, by just working with us, partnering with us, collaborating with us, we can do that. Thank you, everyone.